I have a secret. I've always wanted kids my entire life. I didn't know when, where, or how, but I knew someday I would have a family. I would act tough, even indifferent about it sometimes. I grappled with the thought of it. Would I be any good at being a mother? Would I feel like my life was over? I still hadn't been to Italy. After having lost an ovary and a fallopian tube at 17, I never thought my chances would be outstanding, so I downplayed motherhood in public and would secretly weep about the unknown in private. I knew I would get to it, albeit by my own womb or someone else's. I just had so many questions and doubts. So when I got pregnant, I was over the moon. Immediately I began planning. I couldn't wait. I was so in awe of finally being pregnant that I was only mildly hesitant to tell people. It's such a weird place to be when you're newly pregnant. No one is opening doors for you or giving up their seat on the bus because no one knows. You're in your own secret world. Your body is working overtime and it's seriously exhausting. And you want so badly to tell people. But you're supposed to wait until you're out of your first trimester, they say. I was almost there. We told our family and friends. I can even remember saying, well, if something does go wrong, these are all the people that I would want to know anyway. Besides, we were already on to what kind of hot rod would be a good family car. At about 11 weeks, I started spotting, which isn't really that out of the ordinary, but the midwife suggested that I come in for an ultrasound anyway. There we discovered on the screen a tiny little person with no heartbeat. As tears streamed down our faces, I was scheduled for my D&C a few days later. I will never forget how it felt right then to hopelessly look down at my already beginning to swell belly. Managing the gamut of emotions that followed in grief was so much harder than I ever thought it could be. Lots of people tried to say the right things, but I really wished I could have handed them some sort of helpful guide. For example, here's what I would categorize under things not to say to someone who's experienced a miscarriage. You know, that's really common. It's just not remotely comforting. While it's true, somewhere between 10 and 20% of known pregnancies end up in miscarriage, let's just establish the fact that now would not be a great time to remind the woman that, sure, by some standards, the odds were stacked against her. Instead, start with a hug and say something like, I'm sorry you're going through this. When are you going to try for another? If you're asking that, chances are you will now be placed in the last to know category. It really isn't any of your business, and she could be thinking 1,000 things like, what's wrong with me? Was this my fault somehow? For now, let her figure out what her next best steps will be. Everything happens for a reason. It is what it is. This was God's way. Whenever we experience a loss, we seek to find the explanations as to why it happened, although the hard truth is that oftentimes we will never get the answer. We must contend with the fact that it happened. My advice would be, maybe just omit those cliches and give her a hug instead. If you're thinking, I'm worried she will be uncomfortable around me and my baby, I definitely was not pining for other people's babies like they do in the movies. To be honest, I cried after attending my first baby shower for a friend. But it is possible to be a little sad for yourself and truly happy and joyful for the mom to be. If you're thinking, I really want to comfort her, but I don't know what to say, good for you. You're already using a filter and demonstrating that you can be a good listener, which is what I longed for the most. You don't have to have the answers. Hug her. Help her to take care of herself. Bring food and wine, but leave out the remarks like, hey, well, at least you can drink now. Seriously. Check in on her often, and then again much later in the game than you'd think. You're a true blue friend, and she will never forget the empathy you've shown. A note to anyone going through it, I'm sorry. Welcome to the resourceful, elite, and exclusive club you joined, willingly or not. Child or childless, you became a mother. You know things and can comfort someone going through the loss of a baby like no other. A friend told me that it is yogi belief, and I'm paraphrasing here, that not every soul is meant to stay here on this earth at this particular time. They perhaps just needed a place to touch down before moving on. This brought me peace. I hope that you are able to share what does eventually bring you peace too. You have a voice, and I would love to listen.